Hello students, this is the final little video that I'm making for JMS 200 in the semester fall 2020. Last week we had sort of an unusual class. It was an extra credit opportunity and I forgot to solicit a challenge or an idea. You guys give me, usually it's food, something to eat or something to do. Because you didn't give me a challenge, I came up with my own. This is my recipe for something called Macque Choux, okay? It is a Cajun corn dish. It's kind of like a spicy succotash, kind of. This is my regular thing I make every Thanksgiving. Been doing it for at least 25 years. Okay, first a little quick history lesson about Cajuns and what Cajuns are and why we even have this word, Cajun. In 1713, France gives this region, Acadia, which is now basically Nova Scotia, over to England. So there's a bunch of people that have already been living there. These are my ancestors, and they speak French, and they're also Catholic. They're not Anglican, so there was a religious issue here in 1755. I believe it was the governor or whoever was ruling that region for England just decided on his own that he was just going to get rid of all the French. They either had to swear an oath of allegiance to the crown and become British, or they had to just go into exile. Many of them were put into prison. So some of the Acadians decided to actually resettle in Louisiana because there was already people speaking French in Louisiana, and the Acadians felt like, okay, we'll just mix in with these people. When they moved to southern Louisiana, the name sort of changes and becomes Cajun. And for many, many years, it was actually forbidden to speak French in the public schools. Both of my grandfathers told stories when they were still alive about being beaten and slapped by the Catholic school nuns for speaking French. So the language was actually suppressed for some time. In 1971, state legislature of Louisiana actually designates this region, these 22 parishes. In Louisiana, they don't call them counties, they call them parishes. The state legislature designates this region as Acadiana to designate that this is the region where a lot of the Cajuns originally settled. And look at this, I found this many years ago in 1965. A Professor Thomas Arceneaux created a flag, which would be not a state flag, but a flag for the region of Acadiana. And yes, I don't know exactly how I'm related to Professor Thomas Arceneaux, but I think it is almost a 1000% certainty that we have common ancestors at some point. Okay, here it is. Here is my traditional Thanksgiving dish. I've been making this for many years. I don't even have a recipe anymore. I just kind of do it off instinct, and I'm just going to go give you my basic recipe here. Any of you who are good in the kitchen or have a feel at how to cook can probably modify this to however you want. First, you saute the Trinity, and that is three things that are the basis for many Cajun dishes. That would be onion, celery, and bell peppers. You could throw in jalapenos if you want, but basically it's the onions, the bell peppers, and the celery. Saute that, and then I just mix in a bunch of frozen corn. Could be sweet corn, could be yellow corn, could be fresh corn, whatever. Corn is the main ingredient here. Then you put in some chopped tomatoes. Don't put the tomatoes in earlier when you're sauteing the other vegetables. Tomatoes have a lot of water. It's going to change their consistency, and it's going to be a different flavor if you add them early. So don't add them until you add the corn. And then I put in a mess of seasoning and 1 teaspoon of sugar. The 1 teaspoon of sugar is important here. There's me about to chop up those vegetables. That's what it looks like. And I know my chopping skills aren't the best. Ideally, I think everything should be basically the same size so it cooks evenly. I don't really take that much time to be so precise. I call it a rustic form of cooking, a rustic form of cooking. Garlic is very important. Garlic, as they say, is as good as 10 mothers. And here's the seasoning that I use. The reason I like Tony Chachere's is because when I was growing up in the 1970s, this was the only type of Cajun seasoning that you could get in the grocery store, at least that was easily available. And I just remember if I went over to someone's house when I was a kid, if they had Tony Chachere's and Tabasco on their kitchen table or on the kitchen counter, I assumed that that meant those people were related to us, and I was generally correct. So it's a nostalgia thing. This is what I ate growing up. There's a million types of Cajun seasoning, but for my money, this is the one. It does have a fair amount of salt, so I typically don't use salt if I'm going to use this. Here's the corn. And you can see the tomatoes there. Sometimes I have made this on Christmas, and if I make it around Christmas, I will use red bell peppers instead of the green bell peppers, and maybe a little bit of green as well. It kind of makes that red-green Christmas color, but you know, even if you use the green bell peppers, you're still going to get that red-green effect with the tomatoes. Here's the sugar. I just use 1 teaspoon. That's a trick I learned a long time ago. It actually does help. And then if you're cooking sweet things, it actually works the other direction as well. A little bit of salt will actually help things taste sweeter. But here we're using sugar in a savory dish. And there it is, simmering. That's it. That's my Macque recipe. Modify it if you like. Take it, serve it. Your family and people at Thanksgiving will be happy.